Here we go, back at it. We got it. This is these are great ones. Okay, go. Is that
Do I
right?
have the mouse?
Easy. Everybody.
Okay. So onto the characteristics of a cult they follow. I think it's pretty clear. They follow the charismatic leader. Characteristic. She's a pretty stereotypical charismatic leader. I mean, she makes everybody who follows it follow her, the Supreme Master. So not a great look. And then she's also often seated on an ornate throne and wearing shiny new expensive clothes, overall partaking in blatant forms of consumerism, which is interesting because that's exactly what she teaches against. And then she also wears a ton of furs and animal products. And if we know the main motto is be vegan, keep peace, or make peace alternatively. So that's not, she's not really following her own motto. And then recruiting those with physical and emotional stress, simplifying their problems down to if you're vegan and you follow my self-help routines, then you can solve all your problems. Or if you buy all of these things from me, then you'll solve all of your problems. And then she has a level of economic exploitation. It's not really in the sense of give me everything you have. It's more if you're part of it, you have to basically buy anything that she sells. So she sells anything someone could ever want. She sells jewelry, art, clothing, self-help books, meditation, ritual things, so like her bathwater, and things like that that you have to buy from her to really feel the full effect of her enlightenment. And then most of these things cost hundreds of dollars to like thousands of dollars for her beautiful artwork. That's one of the sets of jewelry she has. And so this is like $1,000. For these beautiful rhinestone peace vegan. Don't you want those?
We should all get
Yeah, massive peace vegan.
that in the bathwater. Let's do it.
Yeah. And then 90 lectures, we can put it on. And then of course her restaurant chain is a very exploitative thing. So again, there's over 200 locations of the Loving Hut, and they're all associated with the Supreme Master, but have slightly different menus, and all of the owners are not really, they're related to the Supreme Master, but they aren't the Supreme Master. She's not the owner of all of them. And each restaurant is required to have entirely vegan menus. The Supreme Master has to at least have one photo in the establishment. And they always must play the Supreme Master live streams. One of the four. And then before they call themselves a Loving Hut, Ching Hai herself has to visit and approve it. But this restaurant, and they also are highly encouraged to buy all of their vegan products from this organization that Ching Hai owns, of course, for her vegan fake meat. And then there have been multiple cases of unpaid or underpaid work with the followers of the cult volunteering to work at the restaurant and all of these things, which has actually caused Ching Hai to get arrested multiple times. The one thing that they definitely do not follow is the leaving of your old life behind. They're very clear that anybody can join, and they're not on their website. It says you will not be asked to join any organization or participate in any way that does not suit your current lifestyle. And I wouldn't say that they necessarily fully go with that, but it's definitely not fully social isolation. And then she doesn't require people to destroy relationships with their family and friends. So then, again, big controversies have happened with Supreme Master Ching Hai. One of them, of course, is the unpaid work. And then she has made political donations, and they get returned. So there was a $400,000 donation to the Clinton campaign. And it got returned to her. And it turned out that she asked a New York sect of the movement for that $400,000 to help someone in need. And then ended up giving it to the Clinton campaign, and they gave it back. So if the politicians are giving you back the money, that's typically not a good sign. And then there have been multiple accusations of money laundering. And in China, followers created a front through an electronics company to recruit members. And so there have been multiple companies made as fronts to recruit more members. And then in one of her many houses, Qinghai was arrested along with millions of dollars in items because her undocumented volunteer work, and then also she had a menagerie of illegally imported animals. So she had a ton of birds in her house, in her villa in Italy. A ton of different species of birds that were illegally imported and brought to Italy. And then the biggest one is that she illegally made a boardwalk in 2003 in Florida National Park. And so she constructed a 330-foot boardwalk and a man-made island.
Oh.
Right there. You can see it's really pretty. And it was discovered by park rangers. And then this national park is home to many endangered mangrove species and a ton of endangered animal species as well. And so she's not really following her conservation ideas there, because she did destroy quite a few of those mangrove trees and habitat. And so it took $1 million just to remove the boardwalk alone and repair the mangrove habitat just from that short boardwalk. But the island is still there because it was too expensive to remove. Because it's all just a bunch of really big limestone boulders, and they can't get like a barge or anything through the water. And so it's just stuck there. They can't move the island. And so that habitat is permanently destroyed. And then they couldn't find her after the incident. And so she got some of her property in Florida revoked, like it got stolen from her, or well, not stolen, but taken from her as retribution. But that's it. That's all of the things that she had to pay for all of that. And then again, it is still very active and continually growing. And then it is banned in multiple countries. It is banned in Vietnam, China, and Cambodia on some level. And so they all have it on their evil cults list. And so practitioners there are much more hidden, but they still exist. And then they still have, again, their constant live stream open 24/7. And Qinghai, my main concern is that Qinghai is getting older. She was born in 1950, and so she's 76 right now. And they don't have a plan for when she dies. And she is like the main glue that holds all of this together. And it's all based on her. And so I don't know, they don't have a plan for that. But that's we'll see how that goes. I think there is a very high likelihood that it will fall apart. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's my personal evaluation. I do think it is a cult. I think it is a pretty, it's a pretty clear example of a commercial and self-help cult. It isn't as extreme with some of the characteristics as some of the other ones we've looked at, and so it can be a little bit less, but there's still a level of exploitation and charismatic leader and things like that that I do think make it a cult still. And it's, yeah, again, it's just causing issues for some members and exploiting them. So that's why I think that it is.
Very good. Yeah, that was a great show, and I think it's really funny about all the. Well, I'm sure that island was very vegan.
Oh yeah, so vegan.
Field trip?
Yes.
All right, one more applause. I forgot to do it. Nice job. All right, and thank you for being kind halfway through. I'll take those. Okay. Who wants to go next? Okay, save.
This one's like a nice break from the horrible atrocities that a lot of the other
Yeah.
ones have in them.
Yeah, this is more, well, yeah, for the most part. Yeah, give me 1 sec. Awesome. All right, you may begin.
All right, so I'm presenting on cargo cults, and there's like a lot of different cults, and the broad definition is a South Pacific cult that is waiting for the return, typically of a Western Messiah, to bring back a traditional way of life. And I'm going to give an overview of cargo cults in general, and then talk about one specifically, which is the John from Cargo cult. This is a picture of that cult. You can see in the background the American flag is flying. All right, so the background is in the South Pacific. There are these colonial powers, mostly Britain and France, and they just devastated the native traditions. On some islands, they still haven't recovered to their pre-colonial numbers. So millions and millions killed from disease, from conquest, from many other horrible things. There was a lot of oppression, especially with those people being forced to work on plantations, sugar cane, pineapple plantations, things like that. And then this was later boosted in World War II, where a similar thing happened, but Japanese and Americans were fighting head to head in these South Pacific islands, and this was much later. So the geography, they were once active all over the South Pacific, especially in Fiji, but now they're only active in Papua New Guinea and in Vanuatu. I'm going to be talking about Vanuatu. Okay, so the history. The cult is kind of an anti-colonial reaction. It mixes a lot of pre-existing beliefs and a little bit of Christianity and a lot of modern ideas like capitalism, trade, cargo, the Western world. And then World War II was a huge influence again as American and Japanese soldiers were fighting in a lot of these islands where this cargo was coming in massive amounts. And cargo is the physical cargo, but it's also the Western influence that happened on this island. It was thought to have started in Fiji in the 1890s, these cults, and they started to spread. And then it really got boosted in World War II, especially with John From. And so I'm going to be talking specifically about the most famous cargo cult, which is the John From Cargo cult. It is right here in the village of Lamacara. The southern half of Tanna Island, which is in Vanuatu. And it had thousands of people in the cult site in the 1960s, and now just a few hundred people today. Their numbers are dwindling. That's their village. They have a separate village. So it was believed to have begun in the 1920s, where it was the same thing, kind of this is when Britain and France co-owned it was then known as the New Hebrides, but it's now Vanuatu. They co-owned it, and there was a lot of loss of native traditions, especially with Christian missionaries, kind of devastated native traditions. And then as they started to become more and more independent, Americans arrived in Vanuatu. It was a main stopping point. There was a huge airfield. Upwards of 500,000 American soldiers moved through Vanuatu. And along with them came massive amounts of cargo. And this cargo wasn't just tanks and planes and bombs and guns and missiles. It was also radios and new kinds of food and new technologies that they had never seen before. And this really boosted the cult. The Vanuatu Labor Corps was a group of the Vanuatu, that's the native Vanuatu people, who helped the Americans. They were paid by the American government. And this is what really directly influenced the cult, because they were with the Americans and they unloaded that cargo. They saw this influence. And it's next to Mount Yasser, which is an active volcano. And then I'll talk a little bit about them. All right. Their practices are kind of strange. So it's very militant, and this comes a lot from the American influence, American military coming in. There's a lot of drilling and marching. You can see this is people drilling, marching that USA painted on their chests. They have American uniforms and flags. That's supposed to say shrine, but not shrine. But they have like a shrine hut in their village, and there's an American flag hanging. There are uh, uniforms. That's where they keep all of their gear for the cult. There's a lot of traditional singing, dancing, and kava drinking. And there's a worship of capitalism, America, the Western world, and the traditional ways. And so the basic, it's hard to describe what their beliefs are without talking about what they do first. So the idea is that John Frum, who's kind of a characterization of American soldiers, will come back to the islands of Vanuatu, and he will bring the cargo with him and sweep away the colonial oppressors and bring back the traditional way of life with riches and happiness for everybody. And so the idea that there's this new technology, that there's this American who's living in the West, that's what came up from all of this new technology. So, also, they say when John Frum comes back, he's going to live in that active volcano. All right, so characteristics of a cult is kind of difficult, especially because there's a lot of different cargo cults, and they've had a lot of leaders. It's more of a like a chief, and the reason that that chief becomes the charismatic leader is because everybody's already in that cult, and he becomes like the person who can commune with the local gods and John Frum through the volcano, and that he's the one that they should listen to because he has the power. There's a lot of financial exploitation, mostly from people from the United States and Japan going into the cult and saying, I'm John Frum, I'm here, I'm going to help you, getting anything they want, getting riches, free land, all that, and then just leaving with as much money as they can take. And there's a lot, people are lost because their traditional ways were wiped out, again, mostly by colonial oppression and Christian missionaries, just destroyed their traditional identity. And so this is a reaction to that, of come back, that traditional identity is still here, we still have it. And then, as you can see here, they're dancing the traditional way, again, the American flag flying. That's a more traditional lifestyle. And they also at one point spent all their money and moved inland to kind of get away from it. It's kind of strange. It's anti-capitalist in some ways, especially because the cult fluctuates a little bit. But they spent all their money to become more traditional, and then it just profits by the side jump from come back. And then they live in a separate village, just kind of some isolation, but not too much. All right, so takeaways. Across cargo cults, there's a huge amount of variation. Some have like a more of a big man system where it's one leader of the cult who kind of rules. In the John Frum cult, it's more of just like a traditional village, but the leader of the cult has more power because he supposedly commune with John Frum. It's a long-lasting cult. The original one started in the 1890s, and the John Frum cult started in the 1920s. It was really used in the 40s. It's a lot of mix of old traditions and new ideas. They want those old traditions back, but these new ideas are the things that bring them back. The cargo, the Western influence, the capitalism, technology. It has unfortunately been exploited by several outsiders. I know there was I think, English woman who came in and just was like, yeah, I'm your messiah, and lived there for a couple of years, took a lot of their money and left. So there is like exploitation from people coming in, not really being in the cult, but using the cult. And then it's also a different kind of cult. There's not a horrible ending of mass suicides or several people dead or everybody's broke. It's just kind of their way of life. But I do definitely think it is a cult because of their ideas and the way that they worship and that they drill and that they march. John Frum Day in Vanuatu is February 15th, so mark that on your calendar. That's when they do a lot of their marching. Yeah. John Frum's not going to help us. And then, so I actually went to the John Frum village. Here's me standing over the active volcano. Mount Yasser is known as the most accessible volcano in the world, so that's really cool. And you can look right into it. This is on a different island in Vanuatu, but one of their traditional worships is worship of the pig, because it was their main food source. And here, there's this cave where this pig is naturally occurring. So you can see the pig when it wasn't carved, that was just naturally formed there. And they have, there's a lot of, not in the cult, but traditional, like more traditional beliefs that say one of their great chiefs was brought to this cave and he was hit by a spear and an axe in battle, but he laid down for 3 days and in a miraculous recovery. In the John Frum village too, right as we've done in Vanuatu, there was a horrible hurricane that devastated a lot of Vanuatu and a lot of people died. There's a lot of destruction. And in John Frum village, they're right on the edge of the water, right under the volcano. And what had happened is it had come through and brung in all of this driftwood so that they didn't have to go collect wood to burn. They could just pick it up from the beach. And then they have natural hot springs that come from the volcano. So I'm not saying that their beliefs are right, but they seem pretty blessed. There's and I don't know if you can click back, but I took like half the pictures of this.
Which one?
I took some pictures, not that one. This I took, and then this one.
Oh, that's a cool picture.
Yeah, it's kind of just it. You wouldn't see it like some cults. You can kind of see it. Just looks traditional, like a lot of their villages look that way. But there's just you wouldn't really see it from the outside. But when you read more about it, it becomes more cultish. And then if you want, I have a little blurb in their local language of like the overview of John Frum, if you want to read that.
Yeah.
All right. So this is Baslama. It's a pidgin language, so it's like half English, a little bit French, and then the traditional language. So it's basically English. Mani come long America, hemi big come long Solwata. After hemi Castle. Name belong him John Frum. By John Frum come long island long Namakara. Hemi kerem full of cargo. Wilson and kerem good life long all man, all woman, all bikini. Good life Dumas long Republic long Vanuatu. And that's basically John Frum came to us, and he's going to come to us again with cargo, and he's going to bring a good life for everybody and restore the islands to their pre-colonial grandeur.
You hear little bits of it when the little like pigeon is.
Yeah, it's really easy to learn.
What year is it now?
Ooh, 2023?
Oh, so yeah, it's right in your memory.
Yeah. Part of the reason I wanted to show some pictures.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. Where did the name John Frum come from?
It's played as John Frum America, but in their local language, it would be John Long America. So they're not sure exactly where it came from, but they also think it could have been John Broome because he was going to come and sweep away all of the white people that had taken over Vanuatu, and that became John Frum.
All right, good job.
Yes. My dad served in the Peace Corps in like 2003, and he had gotten inducted into a village with a traditional name, and like had met the chief, and and that was way before I was born, obviously. So he wanted to bring us back so that we could be inducted into the village too. So I got a traditional name and served. And I got the salmon top.
That's pretty cool. All right. There's so many places to visit. Yeah, I'm glad that. In some elements, it's tall, but yeah, it's not all cut and dry. What's for next? Okay. Give me time. And I'll move the mouse. Okay.
So my cult is the 12 tribes, or the Yellow Delhi cult. Their slogan is the Commonwealth of Israel. So that's the first thing about that. So we'll go over the origins, core beliefs, daily life, characteristics, so is it actually called, and my final decision. Where and when did it begin? So it was pretty simple at the start. It started with this guy called Albert Eugene Spriggs, also known as Gene Spriggs, or in his Jewish name, David Yonah. So he was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 1937. he grew up Christian and was really close with his dad, but they did say that his dad made him understand authority, which is makes sense later on with what they do. But his dad taught him like a lot of valuable lessons and was just a good guy in general. They really hype up Gene Spriggs as a person. They're like, he was an average student, great athlete. He had a degree in psychology. He went into the military and he was a successful businessman and a teacher. So he did a lot. But even after all this, he had several failed marriages and he felt like his life was falling apart. And it only became even worse when his dad died. And his dad told him to serve the Lord. Gene didn't, and Gene ended up having to go to the altar call 17 times. So he wasn't super up to his faith. He ended up moving to California where he turned down a very high paying job. And he then says that a man runs up to him on the beach, tells him to turn to God, and then the man disappears. So this made him rethink everything. And he ended up going to Wyoming for skiing, where he meets a pretty Californian ski bum, but they say that ski bum's not a good word and it's a slur, not a slur. But he meets this woman. He says that she hates Christians and Southerners because she's a Californian. But he talks to her about his love for Jesus, and eventually she turns to Jesus and they get married. So he meets Marcia. And so now he's with Marcia. They move back to Chattanooga, where they both get employed. Marcia works at a restaurant as a server, and they don't really say what he did, but unimportant. Chattanooga was filled like with a lot of young people at this time. And it was in the height of the Jesus movement. So a lot of people are trying to figure out their faith, trying to connect with God. And so he makes a poster board for rap sessions. Rap sessions are not what you think they are. It's just them talking about Jesus. And so he says they're Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30. And so he cuts out all these cards and hands them out to everybody. And when people start showing up, he gets this message from God, and God tells him to speak from the heart. So he tells everybody to give your entire life to God. Most of these people were young Christians, or from Christian backgrounds at least, and people who thought they were out of touch with God. So these young people were so enthralled by Gene Spriggs that they did not want to leave his house. They did not want to leave the rap sessions. And so Gene tells Marcia of his success with these rap sessions and eventually convinces her to start talking about Jesus to the people she's serving at her job. And her manager was pretty upset by this because he just was like, hey, just serve the people so they can pay and leave. But Marcia's like, I really want to connect to these people at a deeper level. And so eventually Gene and Marcia make their own Yellow Deli, which is where this started. That's what it first looked like. And they said they was like really poor when they started because they didn't have very much money. And so everything that was given to them was just donations. So like an electrician came in and gave them lighting, a plumber came in, carpenter, all these things. And the restaurant starts actually really hitting it off. It's doing great. Everybody's finding out about Jesus. Gene is having a great time. And a woman comes up to Gene and tells him, your gates will never close. And then she also disappears, much like the man on the beach. So he understands this as, my gates will never close, so that means my restaurant should be open 24/7. So it is. But if people who work at the restaurant, they don't get salaries. Everybody lives out of a common pot. Everything is shared. And he said that everyone who works here is like instant family. So I think you can already see where that goes. But it was really about trying to make a community and bring everyone together. So he then buys several houses so everyone can live in a commune. So yeah, he's born. His life goes downhill, so he goes to California. He gets married, and then he starts his rap sessions. Basic overview of his life. So the core beliefs of the Yellow Deli. Oh, this was the first quote on their website. Just as in the book of Acts in the New Testament, our life together in the communities of the 12 tribes is the wholehearted response and simple devotion to life, death, and resurrection of the man, Yahshua the Messiah. So that's like when you click on their website to figure out like what they're about, this is the first thing that pops up. Completely black screen and just this quote. You gotta scroll like for a second before you can find anything else. So what they practice, members believe that they're restoring to going back to early Christian lifestyles, so living in community, sharing everything. It's supposed to represent the 12 tribes of Israel in the Bible. It combines like modern Christianity and Messianic Jewish traditions. So on the restaurant, even though Gene Sprague said you wanted to open 24/7, they do have their day of rest, which starts at noon, the evening of Friday and goes to the evening of Saturday. So they're not open during that time, but they do have a 24-hour phone line and an email, so you can still contact them at any time. They're really preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ. It emphasizes obedience, discipline, and the separation from modern society. Strong emphasis on traditional family roles. So men are obviously the leaders of the household. They take care of everything. They're the ones that work. They're the ones that do hard labor. Women take care of children, and children should always, always, always be obedient. If they're not, corporal punishment. Daily life. So their thing is living like Jesus. So most days start out with prayer and a Bible study. Every meal is shared. It will always be as a group. There's no eating alone. Members work in group-owned businesses. So they have farms, they have construction sites, they have crafts, and they have restaurants, and then they have coffee houses. And those are everywhere. There is a total of 34 yellow delis across the world. There's one in Kyoto, Japan. There's one somewhere in Australia, New South Wales. There's 2 in Brazil. There's 5 in Canada. There's 2 in Spain. There's 1 in the United Kingdom. And then the rest are all in the United States. But they also have coffee houses, and I think Bosnia. They're really everywhere. And most of their farms are in South America because it's easy to go stuff there. But famous business, obviously the other deli. Members do not get wages, they get food and housing instead. But members are also encouraged to leave everything behind and donate money to the 12 tribes in order to pay back for what they're given. Children also are always homeschooled. Characteristics. Oh yeah, here's the map of the yellow delis in the United States. And well, in North America.
Where's that one there? That's Spokane or is that Coeur d'Alene?
Here,
Yeah,
it's in Coeur d'Alene.
that's my driving distance.
Yeah, I think we should go, guys. But obviously they have a very charismatic leader, man by 3 names. Without him, it wouldn't have started. He shaped it entirely, and he really had his guidance as a strong spiritual leader, as you can see with the people who came to him and then immediately disappeared after, who he thinks are angels. Recruiting, okay, I have to pull up my beautiful email from Sword. So I contacted them and I was like, hey, I understand that you combine Messianic Judaism and Christianity, and I was just wondering more about how that works. And Soreth didn't really answer that first question. He more so ignored it. I'll read it. I'll read it to you piece by piece. He gave me several of his articles to read. He says, "Dear Rowan, I do not know by personal experience about Messianic Judaism. He's a part of the cult, so he should. But by observation, it is an attempt on both the part of Christians and Jews to merge the religious visions in the person of Jesus Christ. Naturally, this has much greater social and religious consequences for the Jew than the Christian, but a Sabbath keeper or a Torah keeper, etc., are definitely on the outskirts of traditional Christianity, even though they number in the millions. Here is an article you may not have seen on our website. Gives me an article that I had previously read. By way of getting to know you, Rowan, I wrote several of the articles, including The Best of Compliments and The Year of Jubilee. We published this some 15 years ago, but it remains a very good introduction to see how these great movements there. They were historic and decisive and changed the direction diametrically away from the sincere, simple believers of the early centuries wanted to go in. That is why the Sabbath was held on to so tenaciously. Better to the anathema to the hierarchy than disobedient to the Father. Easy words to write from a distance, but very brave at the time. And then he talks about his wife. They have been a part of this for 43 years. It'll be 44 in the fall.
What's his name again?
Sorif.
Dor.
Sorif is great. He then gives me a Bible quote. He says, we are very thankful to have given these, the best years of our life, to the best cause of all, the restoration of all things prophesied by the Savior in Matthew. And then he's like, then he talks about his wife again. He goes, my wife and I both teach children so full time, so we'll have to fit any more scheduling around that. He didn't respond to my next email, so I was pretty sad. I also thought he would, but he decided not to. He did call me he called himself my new friend. So I have a new friend. His name's Sork. But it does target specifically young people, even more specifically those who had previous ties to Christianity or felt disconnected from their faith. Uses overly friendly outreach to get to people. So like you go into the Yellow Deli and they will be incredibly kind. And they will wait on you hand and foot and just try to be the nicest people you've ever met. So that way they can get you to talk more and get you more into their lifestyle. They also have like invitations to gatherings, like come to my party, and then they'll talk to you about joining the Yellow Deli. Their solutions, so they think that everyone's problems come from being so disconnected to the Bible and what it previously meant. So they think you can solve all your problems by moving into this communal home, giving up all your previous possessions and leaving the influence of the outside world. So as long as you leave everything behind and come with them, you'll be great. So the exploitation, members work extremely long hours, whether it be at the Yellow Deli because it is open. It's only not open from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. So, not much time. But people work long shifts or they work on the farms, and that's a lot of work. Again, they don't get paid to do this. All money goes to the 12 tribes. People say that this obviously seems more like a cult than any regular organization or business, but who am I to judge? I am here to judge, actually. So obviously they're a cult, 100%. They line up with every characteristic, and I think they're probably not the worst cult, but they participate in child abuse, and they don't pay people, and you have to give up everything to go be part of the community. So obviously not great. I think their idea of having community and what Gene Spriggs wanted it to start out as is just a bunch of young people talking about God and their experiences. That's a good idea. But I think he took it a step too far when he says everyone is going to live together and everyone's going to work in my restaurant and not get paid. But yes, that is my final decision about the Yellow Deli.
How many people are a member now, do you know? At least one.
At least one. So and his wife.
Two. We got two.
And whatever children they teach. But there's just so many locations. I didn't realize how widespread it was until I looked at their map of locations, and they're everywhere. And I think that's shocking to see how many people were like, yeah, I'm gonna give up everything to go work 15-hour shifts. That's what I want. Yes, Fiona.
So do you know if the farms, they export their produce just to the restaurants, or they export it elsewhere?
Mainly just to the restaurants, and everything usually goes back to the tribe so that they can.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And everyone is owned, every Yellow Deli is owned by him?
Yes, well, owned by the cult, but it's owned by him.
Yeah. And what is he?
He's dead now.
When did he die?
I don't know exactly.
But it's still rolling along.
Yep,
Spree, yeah.
Gene Spears was quite influential. I like how many names he had. That was my favorite part.
We could start a deli right here in this classroom.
Guys,
You guys don't mind being slave laborers?
No, no, not at all.
Any questions?
I think his wife Marsha's still alive.
Marcia, okay.
Marsha's still there. Oh, he was back there if you guys wanted to see him. He was the old guy. They're usually, all pictures of them are usually done in a circle or like dancing.
Yeah, go back and let's see.
So yeah, that's cool.
I'm doing it.
He's there, that's him.
And
There he is, there he is, and then there's Marsha, they're dancing in the circle. And then here are some of the workers at the Yellow Deli. As you can see, those are children, they work there though.
yeah. Don't want to get late. All right. Any other questions? Good job. All right, I don't want to start one now. I thought about, but we got the long weekend. So, oh, thank you. Huh? 2 days, you're gonna be away from me.
Oh.
Is there?
But there's mixed reviews about their food. Some people like, this is the best sandwich I've ever had, and others are like,
Yeah, last year somebody went to it. Somebody had gone to it.
5 out of 10 would not recommend.
Oh my goodness. Drum roll, please. And by the way, it's gonna be a dark, cold, wet weekend. But the flamingo can be your beacon,
Yes.
a beacon of hope.
It makes me want to give up all my dreams.
Huh?
Yeah.
No. No one joins a cult.
I really want to give up all my previous life.
We have a few more web days, you know, cult. No restaurant. You're right. All right, so we'll take it up. Nice job, everybody. Good work.
There's over 200. Oh.
I like awesome. Like it really goes. Somebody's managed to I can only go. No, no, but it's.
And then when we follow the flamingo,
Yeah.
our charismatic leader. By the way, and what would we worship?
Evolution. Each team is based on.
And rat.
Only eat shrimp.
All right. It is, when you have a religious element here.
I think that was your third most Shakespearean book.
my third.
No.
Number one.
Oh, what's
always be.
The house in Sheldon.
Howell and Sheldon. Howell always what was number two.
I'm actually devastated. Oh, no, that's.
I was gonna name it sometimes.
Like.
I didn't know my, was this like art?
One more thing we could do. The Church of the Bible Understanding started a carpet cleaning service to recruit people. Are you thinking we got a rug connection? Carpet cleaning?
Writing symbols of carpet for that show.
Oh, very good.
We bring them into the department, we have a cold battle. Like where we try to recruit each other.
Somebody should be writing this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm recording this all discussion of starting a call. You gotta get rid of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loving hot hat.
4.3